In this video, we're going to look at parallel lines and transversals. So a lot of what we're going to look at today are just definitions and looking at examples of those. Our EQ is how can algebraic concepts be applied to geometry. Just a real quick review on perpendicular and parallel lines. Perpendicular lines are lines that intersect in a plane and form right angles. So they are going to intersect and they're going to make 90-degree angles when they do. The symbol for perpendicular is almost like it's an upside down T. So we can state that line M is perpendicular to line N. Parallel lines are lines that are in the same plane that do not intersect. They will run side by side and never cross. So in this particular situation, we have lines A and B. The symbol for parallel are two vertical lines side by side. So we can say that A is parallel to B. Okay, we're going to look at transversal lines. Transversal lines are lines that intersect two or more lines. For instance, in my diagram here, I've got two parallel lines which are M and N. So M is parallel to N. Then I've drawn a transversal that intersects both of those lines. So line A is going to be our transversal. What happens when that transversal line crosses those two parallel lines? It divides it into 8 different angles. We're going to look at those and how they relate to each other and how we have our corresponding angles and see which ones are congruent to which. So the first set of angles we're going to look at are the interior angles. Those are your angles that are going to lie inside the parallel lines. So if I were to cover up everything on the outside, there we go, I'm looking at 4 angles inside those parallel lines. Angle 4, 3, 5, and 6. So those interior angles are angle 4, angle 3, angle 5, and angle 6. The exterior angles are the angles that lie outside the parallel lines. So I can kind of cover up those interior angles, and I have 4 that are on the outside of those parallels. Angle 1, angle 2, angle 7, and angle 8. Okay, so you have your interiors inside the parallel lines. You have your exteriors that are outside the parallel lines. Okay. Now we're going to look at alternate interiors. Alternate interior angles are interior angles that are on opposite sides of the transversal. One thing to know that's very important, alternate interior angles are congruent. So, since we have that word interior, then we're going to be looking at those 4 angles that are on the inside, 4, 3, 5, and 6. Angle 4 and angle 6 are on opposite sides of that transversal. That means that they are alternate interiors and they're going to be congruent. Okay? Still looking at those interior angles, we can now look at 3 and 5. 3 and 5 are on opposite sides of that transversal. So they are also alternate interiors. They are going to be congruent. Now let's look at the alternate exteriors. We're going to be looking at these outside angles, 1, 2, 7, and 8. And I'm going to go ahead and just erase our interiors so that we know we're looking at those 4. Alternate exteriors are exterior angles that are on opposite sides of the transversal. So kind of along the same lines as an alternate interior, except we're looking at the outsides. Again, these alternate exteriors are going to be congruent. So we're going to look at this transversal, and let's look at angle 1. Opposite the side of angle 1 is angle 7 on the other parallel line. That means that these are alternate exteriors. They're going to be congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 7. And then we'll look at angle 2, and its opposite is angle 8. They're on separate parallel lines, so they are alternate exteriors as well, which means they're going to be congruent. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 8. Okay? So alternate interior, alternate exterior. And then one more term we're going to look at. Are our corresponding angles. Those are angles that are in the same position on the two lines in relation to the transversal. Corresponding angles are congruent. Sorry about that, I had to adjust just a little. Okay, so we have our corresponding angles that are going to be in the same position. So we're going to be looking at 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then their corresponding angles on the other parallel line. So let's look at the position of angle 1. It's at the top left. So when we look at the second set, the top left is angle 5. Those are in the same position on those parallel lines, the top left angles. So that means that angle 1 is going to be congruent to angle 5. Angle 2, in the same position on the opposite parallel line, is angle 6. They're the top right angles. They are corresponding and they're going to be congruent. Angle 3 is in the same position as angle 7. So they are congruent. And then last, angle 4 is in the same position as angle 8. Hoping you can see this. So they are going to be congruent as well. So we're going to be doing some examples of these where we're going to find missing measurements using all of these rules in this video.